You know me, I'm Don, man. Wilson, the host, with my co-host Tamai. Today is a special episode, man, because we got a couple of special guests in the building today. I got Shakori Davis. He's a high school coach, recruiter. We got my man Esmond, the Eston brothers, man, Esmond and Eston Ennis, joining us live also. Say what's up, fellas. How y'all doing, man?
How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing, man? Glad to be here, man.
Doing
Appreciate
good, man. How about you?
Man, I am great, man. I'm good. So the topic we talking about today, man, we discussed the topic on Monday with the state of the community. I just thought it was important to just really touch on this topic. Is the state of the HBCUs, especially with everything that's going on in the world. So with the question I posed to Taman, I said, why is it that so many of our athletes are going to the predominantly white institutions as opposed to going to the historically black colleges? So we'll start off. I can start off with my man Esmond. You can talk to me about that and give me your thoughts on that.
I think really from the aspect of why people may choose the predominantly whites over the HBCUs, if you look at it from being that there's two Division I's in football, there's FBS and FCS, there's no historically black colleges in FBS. So then when you look at it from the FCS standpoint, you have the SWAC, who doesn't participate in the playoff at all, because their championship game is when the playoff starts. And then the MEAC, right, they have it to where they do the Celebration Bowl with the SWAC. So both champions from each conference actually forfeit their bid. So, right, so being that you can't go there and play for a national championship, I think it kind of puts a lot of HBCUs on the back burner, because like if I'm going, we went like A&T went 12-0 the other year, probably 2 years ago, and they had to forfeit their bid to play in the Celebration Bowl, which they won 4 out of the last 5 times. You know, a lot of kids may not want to go because I'm not playing for a national championship. I'm not on TV as much and things like that. So I think from my standpoint, it's just the fact that they don't play in the playoff.
Corey, I heard you agreeing with some of that.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, you know, when you play football, and man, he brought up a great point. I didn't even think at this point, you know, I won't get an opportunity to play for a championship. You got to think the year that A&T went undefeated, they beat Jacksonville State that year. Jacksonville State in this region, they're like the university. They're like the U.
They're like Ohio State. Yep.
Yeah. So for like 8, so like when you watch, you're like, oh my God, A&T just beat Jack State. Like, wow, like that's huge. And you're saying, and now you're gonna sit here and tell me that I can't go play for a natty after just knocking off the king of this region. Man, that's tough. But then also too, I think the bigger issue is you gotta look at the resources that some of these black colleges have available to these athletes, man. Like for instance, the high school that I'm at, we have a nutrition bar at our high school. Although be it it's not to the level of like some of these major D1s, but like you're gonna now ask a kid that had a nutrition bar with 2 strength and conditioning coaches on staff time to go to a school where there's not even a nutrition bar. I mean, you're already starting to set them back. His talent's about to start declining, though.
Eston, you agree with all that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, when you think about big time football, you know, you got kids, some private.
I think we're cutting out.
Breaking up.
All right, so
one of the things that Shakori touched on is the facilities, and a lot of the players today, a lot of our generation, I'll say, think like facilities doesn't really play a major part. But when you look at it as a Division I or just playing collegiate football in general, that's going to be the main place that you're going to be at.
I'm sorry.
whether go ahead, go ahead.
Apologize, I got this. All right. No, you go ahead. Finish it up.
I think with the facilities, it does play a major role, and I think that how the HBCUs allocate the money would maybe help the issue of
Mhm.
how, like, where they get their money from as far as federally. Do they put it into the athletic programs? Do they put it in the academic program? Like, which way? Because if we're looking at
Right.
PWIs, the PWIs predominantly bring in the revenue off of basketball and football, correct?
Mhm.
When we're looking at the Alabamas, the Kentuckys, the Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, Clemson, it's football and basketball that bring in the majority of the revenue. So if you, in that mindset, have to think about what do we need to do to get these guys to come? One of the things they said is facilities. Another thing is the championship. I don't understand the whole championship. I get that championship aspect, but at the same time, it's so many bowls out there to where, like, it's literally only 5 teams that we really look at it realistically that's going to be nationally televised on ABC that'll probably be competing for a championship every year. So how do you compete against that if you're talking about championships? That question is for anybody.
So with that, as far as competing with for the
I
go ahead, A.
want to say, as far as competing with the facilities, I think the biggest struggle is that HBCUs most definitely don't appropriate their funds to help out athletic. And I'm an example, and no disrespect to them, but I remember when I was coming out of high school and I toured Dell State, and I remember walking in the weight room and there was clothes all over the place. They were in a little tiny small trailer, but then I went to Wesley and their weight room was 2 times bigger, and they're a small private school. And Dell State has made a big jump in the last couple of years, just using them as an example. They've got a bigger weight room, things like that, but they don't put a lot of the funds in the budget, mostly academic spectra, because a lot of BC
E breaking up again.
that are predominantly white have already established that, and now they know where the money is. Their money is in the athletics, the football. Ohio State's, is in, big time major football. A lot of, like you said, the Clemsons, the Michigans, they do bad. So
We can't hear you. You breaking up.
But you know what, to touch on his point, like he was saying, like I remember when I was coming out, I checked out Wesley too, and thought Wesley had way better facilities than some of the other schools I took to look at. But
what?
also, like out here, region, living here in Nashville, we're in the middle of everything. Like you can get to every major city in this region within about a 6 hour drive. So it's kind of easy for us to sell our kids in this region because of drive. But like Missouri Rolla is a Division II school, and I had this conversation with my boy that's recruiting coordinator at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt football doesn't, Vanderbilt's a predominantly academic school. They care heavy about academics. Their football team shares a
Right.
team with all athletics. Missouri Rolla is a Division II school that has its own football facility. They got
Right.
their own indoor. Everything is in one building. And like you touched on earlier, these athletes, this is where they're going to spend probably 90% of their time. So if you ask a kid to come to your school, hell, they're going to have housing 100% guaranteed at some of these HBCUs. So we had a situation that you get to last year. Athletes had to sleep in the gym. You know what I mean? And the thing about it is, you look at some of your white institutions and you're saying, okay, you got the best of both worlds. Your athletics looks good. Your school, your campus looks good. So where's the disconnect? What's going on? It may be a deeper issue of, well, how much funds are actually coming in and what are we doing with those funds when we do it?
Can I chime in on that one?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Definitely. Go ahead.
So with that, with as far as like where the funds go, even if you look at this past year, Morgan State got $350,000 to play Kent State. Morgan State also got $450K to play Northwestern. So that just goes to show, like when Dell State plays a Missouri a few years ago, or Florida State, how much are
Yeah,
they
they got a
really
million.
getting?
They got a million for state.
Yeah, so it's just like the money's coming in, and I understand that they have to appropriate it across the board. But when you're looking at $800,000 for 2 games, I really can't answer that question on the appropriation of funds, because a lot of times when they have those non-conference schedules, they are scheduling big FBS schools, and even Kent State paying $350K is a lot because they're not even a winning program. And as far as like the competing with championships, I think that like as far as that, North Carolina A&T and maybe Hampton, them joining the Big South is like their way of showing that they can win a national championship. Because if you look at A&T, they might have lost 6 games the last 3 seasons, so they're losing like 2 games a year. So they're actually a top 10 type team. So I think that them leaving the MEAC and playing in the Big South, and if they make some noise in those conferences and things like that, I think they can eventually be a HBCU national champion.
Which y'all touched on a lot of points, which bring me to the next question. Is, do you guys think that is what it's going to take for them to move out of the MEAC and the SWATs to go into face those so-called giants? For more African American athletes to want to actually go to the HBCUs over the predominantly white colleges.
Yeah, and if I can speak, in my opinion, most definitely. I feel like HBCU themselves into conferences like the SWAC or MEAC. I feel like they're kind of putting themselves in a bubble. There's really
I'm telling you guys, he's making some great points.
You do get those two games to go play Florida State and Missouri, but let's keep it real. Their starters are going to be out in the first 6 minutes. They went and played Florida State 2 years ago, and it was 35-0 in the quarter. And in all honesty, if you're not out there, put or doing, let's talk about Khalil Mack. He played against Ohio State. He just stayed almost predominantly by himself. And he put himself, as a top 5 draft pick. And I think when a lot of these kids see, if I go to HBCU, no one's going to see me. Yes, I may play in the SWAC MEAC conference championship, but no one's coming to that game. There may be 1 or 2 scouts there, and in the stands. But I'll be honest with you, there's probably more scouts at Western right now than there is at Dell State or Morgan State or places like that. I played with a kid that was a 4-time All-American, and I saw 31 NFL teams at Little Tony Wesley and Dover, Delaware. These teams have got to that possible chance to elevate themselves academically. We talk about like going to school to play football, or to get to the next level. They're not going to be. The goal is to do what? To be in that draft room or to play at the next level in some fashion. Like those 2 conferences, because the stigma is we're only good enough to play in this SWAC MEAC bowl game, and that's it. We're not good enough to go GoDaddy.com bowl and be a team that's nowhere near the caliber of us because we're predicated to only play in this bowl game.
Now, to his point, if I can interject, I think that one of the things that a lot of us forget is the history of the HBCU, right? And when there was a time in the 60s and the 70s to where this is where they had to go, right? And this is where the revenue came in because everybody knew where they were going on Saturdays to go see these guys that ended up playing in the NFL, AFL back then, I mean, even going into the 80s, I mean, black college football in a whole still had to where, I mean, you have the Jerry Rices, the John Taylors, the Michael Strahans that come out. But in all reality, when you're talking about professional football, I mean, the statistics are really against you to make it to the league, re- regardless of where you go. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even if you go to Ohio State, I mean, you still have 75 other scholarship players ahead of you to where, I mean, even in Alabama, like the transfer portal is making it to where it's a free agent market. But at the
Yep.
same time, you have a guy like Darius Leonard to where he comes in second round draft pick out of a HBCU and he comes in and the all pro. Now, granted, he's a one out of a how many, but at the same time, if we had Darius Leonard type talent to actually play in these HBCUs, it would actually bring it up, in my opinion.
Right.
So
Right.
real quick.
Also, oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead. No, no, go ahead. Because
Um,
what I asked one question and then you got into this one. Um, so I do want to have everybody talk about the history of the HBCUs um and I feel as though that like what I talked to you about on Monday, I feel as though that is why some of the black athletes aren't committing to the HBCUs on top of what you guys are saying, but they're not really understanding the history of the HBCUs. So I do want to stay on that topic and then go back to the question that I asked before.
I just want to finish my point, which may be an unpopular point, but and everybody else can interject. If I look at it objectively and not biasly, integration is what hurt the HBCUs as far as athletes is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at what Texas Western did, bringing an all black team, all black starting five, coming in beating Kentucky and winning the national championship, and then 3 years later you have Kentucky integrating. Uh, I I I think that was a major hit to HBCU athletics. But anybody else can chime.
No, we also talked about he wanted to talk about the history of HBCUs and the kids not understanding.
Because but because even to that point, what Tamani is saying is like people aren't really understanding that history, right? That's
Yeah.
history, like
Oh,
that UTEP
you're
team.
100% right. I'll be honest with you. My sister went to a predominantly white school at Lock Haven University in Pennsylvania. She joined, Zeta Phi Beta, and but like me being at Wesley, I think I went to Dell State maybe 5 times. Because honestly, I didn't, like you said, the history was unknown to me. When they came to Laurel and they handed us our packing things. I didn't know the rich history. I never had anybody in my family go to college and strongly influenced me to go to a place like Cal State. But you have so many kids that follow lineage, but we don't really have a lot of lineage to start out with, in a lot of aspects, because we have a great historical HBCU in our own state that a lot of our African American kids don't know about.
And don't go to.
They go to Wesley because they don't know about Dell State, and its rich history, and we don't look at HBCUs because we don't know a lot about them, and we don't talk about them as much, especially not and in all honesty, as coaches, we don't talk about them a lot. And when it comes to athletics, I struggle as a coach sending my kid to an HBCU sometimes because of the stigmatism. Let's talk about a school like the Dell State baseball team. If you look at that team, 80% of their
White,
rosters are kids that are not African American.
Hispanic, or
Because
white.
yeah, because they'll bring those kids in at HBCU, and this is the get by. They'll bring those kids in at 50% scholarship, then give them a 30% minority scholarship, and then give them academic money on top of it.
That
And
is
then plus
true.
it boils down to they're getting full athletic scholarship at an HBCU, and there's probably an African American kid that could easily take that scholarship or work for that scholarship that they're not getting it. They're just not getting it. There is a strong history with the HBCU, but we've instilled our kids. We've got to make an option for a lot. It's not an option. You know, it, in my honest opinion, I just don't feel like it's a huge topic in the house.
Got you. So Corey, real quick, I want to get to Corey. Do you feel as though that, because I know you sent Philip Jacobs go to you coached him, right? He went to the pros. So do you feel as though that we aren't, as coaches, talking about the history enough of the HBCUs, and that is one of the reasons why we see predominantly white colleges able to poach so many of our African American kids to go to their institutions?
Well, see, I think and you guys took the words out of my mouth because I was going to get to that with the inclusion of the HBCU schools and bring it back to why these schools were created in the first place because we weren't even allowed to be at the predominantly white institutions. And you touched about the Texas Western Five. Well, hell, look at what Syracuse did with like Jim Brown. Whether he was playing lacrosse, playing football, and then bringing in Ernie Banks and just the list goes on and on. But I think that question that you ask is twofold. I think the history of the HBCUs definitely not talked about. I know for me, and I was having this conversation with Tamine offline. I don't know if you guys may have saw it. Well, it was on. I think we were on Kenny's Facebook having this conversation. For me as a recruiting guy, it's business with me. The history, the lineage, that stuff goes out the window with me. I mean, for crying out loud, one of my kids this past season, he's going to University of Virginia. Keep in mind, they just had a race ride up there 3 years ago, but hell, they graduated 3 wide receivers. So it was really simple. Hey, son, Virginia just had a kid who decommitted here in the last minute. They want you to go here. It's a Power 5 school. I mean, at that point, I'm not worried about the history or lineage. I'm thinking in that moment is, hey, it's one of the top academic schools in the country, and I'm going to be playing at a Power 5 conference. Oh, by the way, I'm potentially going to start as a true freshman. So some of that stuff right there, that's going to trump any kind of history, no matter what you tell me, because all I'm thinking about is opening day, I got Georgia in the dome. If I house a kickoff return, that's it. Or I can go over here, I can play at Howard, I can house a kickoff return against Morgan State, but who's going to know about it? You know what I mean? Who's going to care about it? So, but I think if you go back to the premise of what you're asking, the history, I can tell you right now, no, that's not being talked about at all because, quite frankly, our history has been rewritten so many times over. No one's thinking, oh man, you got to think back in the day, people used to put on their Sunday best to come sit in here and watch a game. When you think of an HBCU, and this is what a lot of my kids who I talk to now that are at predominantly white institutions, they appreciate where they're at, but we all know there's nothing like a homecoming experience at an HBCU. And I think that's the one thing a lot of these kids, if they could, that would be the one thing that's what you could sell a kid on, is that luster, that tradition, that pride of knowing, okay, hey son, for about 4 home games, this thing is going to be empty, but come homecoming, it's standing room only. And I think that's a big draw. But no, I can tell you right now, especially in my circle, I mean, we don't talk about the history of HBCU. It's strictly business. Where can I play? Where can I get my shot at? We recently just had a kid who got signed by Atlanta Falcons, Chris Rawlin. That's a thing y'all should probably write down and keep up with. He was practically the Heisman for the Black College League this year out of TSU. He's a little undersized, but he's extremely fast. Don't be surprised if he's the number 3 receiver for the Falcons this upcoming season. That's the one to keep up with because he'll be a kid like that's going to be a game changer. You think about like you said, what the kid from the Colts has done he came out of Dell State, right?
No, South Carolina
State. So you think about what Leonard's done with his success, and then and then you think about little buddy that played for the Bears at running back,
Tyree Cohen.
So I mean, you definitely have proof that hey, you can go this route and make it. But I mean, think about it. Carson Wentz is a FCS level kid, but what's the difference? Mm-hmm. If I have opportunity to go to North Dakota State or opportunity to go to Delaware State, I'm gonna go to North Dakota State.
Yeah, hey, listen, I understand that.
And you can also say that about Kalen Newton leaving.
Leaving Hampton. Yeah. Yeah. So
that
I
was
mean,
a big loss.
Yeah, another prime example of that, as my brother Esmond can tell you, when we used to play in the playoffs, we would play like Wisconsin Whitewater and Mary Hardin Baylor. You talk about Jarrell Freeman was a captain and linebacker for the Colts and Bears. I played against him. Cecil Shorts, guys like that all played at Mount Union, and they all were at Ohio State and transferred down to win that championship.
What was the Colts receiver name? He played for. Was it Garcon?
Oh yeah, Pierre Garcon played for the Redskins. Yeah, he played against me too at Mount Union. These are guys that are all pro receivers and linebackers, and they transferred down to go to Division III football.
One of the things that Shakori touched on, and he said that it's business.
Mm-hmm.
And if we understand the statistics as far as actually getting to the league and business wise, right? And if you look at HBCUs making up pretty much $10.2 billion worth of the share of the economy here in America, wouldn't the statistics be like you would want a education first, and the way to do that would be to get a, I mean, not saying that I'm not knocking any PWIs at all, but I'm just saying for kids that you pretty much know that they're great, but at the same time, like for instance, like a guy like who played when I went to Morgan State is Vashante Shenko, right? He was a tight end, and he played, I don't know, I think like 7 to 8 seasons, played for the Vikings and the Giants, right? But I'm pretty sure that I'm not sure if I mean, of course, I don't know him very well, but at the same time, that experience that he had at Morgan State is something that he can cherish, and he got a degree. You know what I mean? Like he graduated all 4 years. So like that degree, even though he was able to play in the league, you got guys that's not going to play in the league that could graduate, get a degree, and have a degree at some of these well-known HBCUs and different majors that can produce in the Black economy as a whole. And we're talking about business. And even if we're talking about business, that could be a way to actually bring in revenue. Like NCAA is a business. Let's just be honest, right?
Big
And
business.
Oh, 100%.
if you're trying to bring business back to your community, I think it has to take someone, a 16, 17-year-old, almost conscious kid to understand what culture change he can impact by making that decision business wise, understanding the statistics of there's like 10,000 scholarship athletes and how many positions on the 32 teams in the NFL. And there's no really other a professional football league that's notable. I mean, you had these other leagues that came in. It's more so for basketball, it's easier because you have overseas. But in football, it's a lot harder, and the stats are against you. So why not come together and have a class to where you know that you're the product, and the product is going to see you. One of the things that me and Dom talked about is if Zion Williamson went to an A&T versus Duke, ESPN is going to follow him regardless. So why not have that attention be placed on an HBCU that you could be right around the corner from?
You know what, man? That's but let's talk about the sport we're talking about with basketball. Basketball, and like I tell kids all the time, anybody can pick up a basketball and play at any given moment. We can go out here right now and play a pickup game. I don't know how in shape we are. So I don't know what that's going to look like. But with football, it's like Zion. If Zion went to A&T, they would have been prime every night because it's Zion. And Zion can control the narrative. In football, it's not that easy to control a narrative like that. I mean, me being a defensive coach, I mean, I take pleasure in shutting down someone's stud player. Like, I'm going to take this player out, and then football has so many moving parts. Like, God forbid your guard doesn't pull on time and you're the All-American running back and someone blows you up backside on the counter and your knee's gone. I'm not going to want to watch that game no more because you're out. But with Zion, he's such a dominant force. I mean, on a basketball court, especially him on the HBCU, that's not even fair. But also another thing you're not talking about with the basketball, those kids get an opportunity to go play for a natty. Now they're going to get blown out. I mean, you still have the opportunity to go to the tournament. Whereas in football, I mean, it's you don't have that same opportunity afforded to you.
And HBCUs don't even play in the highest level of Division I in football.
Right, and that's just it. Now you talk about the revenue, and why not get that education from an HBCU to come back and generate that money. Man, Taman, think about how many times we had to go back to the bursar's office for some financial aid stuff, or hey man, my check ain't. Wait, what you mean my check ain't here?
But that goes back to the money and the resources. Like there was probably 3 people in that financial aid office, and you have all these students coming in asking, "Where's my money? Where, you know what I mean? What's going on?"
Right.
But it goes back to like business.
Yeah,
I mean, college is a business at the end of the day.
Dude, I'll never forget. I won't put this school on blast, bro. We showed up for a private visit, for a tour, everything. They're like, "Oh, get your guys here. We want to show them a good time." Do you know the coaches were an hour late for that meeting?
Oh wow!
like this was set up, scheduled, everything, and they were like,
we had that happen. Me and my brother.
Yeah, like they were an hour late. Meanwhile, I drive up to Kalamazoo, Michigan, to Western Michigan. Hell, they've got the stadium blasting. There's no one there, but they've got kids' pictures, their bio blasting. So I mean, again, I'm going to this HBCU where the coach is an hour late, or I'll go up here to Kalamazoo, 8 hours away from me.
Right.
No, but look at the love I'm getting. I'll play up here.
Yeah. And you have to take a look into the fact that if you look at even Florida A&M, they had a pro day not too long ago, and nobody from the NFL showed up.
Right.
So to me, that goes back to I hear everything y'all saying as far as like exposure and stuff like that, and I know like Taman brought up Zion, but one of the kids that came to mind, freakish athlete who popped in football was Jadeveon Clowney. So I thought about what if he went to a HBCU, right? Would he have been on primetime? Would he still been the number 1 overall pick because he went to a HBCU and didn't go to South Carolina? I look at things like that, and I wanted to get y'all's opinion on that. What if you had a kid that just is so dominant, and he chose to go to a HBCU? Do you think that could be the trailblazer to allow to make other top black athletes want to go to a HBCU?
At the end of the day, for me, it would just be up to the kid. A lot of kids will have to answer that question. Do I want to play in front of 65,000 fans or 15,000 fans? And I think that definitely holds a lot of weight as far as like a kid's choice, as far as coaching, going to the next level. I think the HBCU combine will help them get better players, being that they'll have their own group being scouted by NFL scouts and things like that. So I think it'll help. But as far as like the Jadeveon Clowneys and things like that, it might be a stretch, but anything's possible. You never know. I won't knock it because it could happen eventually.
What you're saying is, go Corey.
Well, and to touch on it today, and that's one of sometimes like, you see college coaches say, "Oh, we'll find you, we find you." And like I tell people all the time, if they want you, they will find you. I mean, they've proven that. And I use that same recruiting pitch when I'm talking to parents, because down here in Nashville, there's such a gap disparity between public schools versus the private schools. And especially in Metro Davidson County, which is where, I reside in. I've coached in Metro for the past 6 years. I'm not in Metro anymore. I'm now moved over to Williamson County. Let me tell you guys, it is a night and day difference in regard. Like, it's literally like Art Metro. It's like going to play at HBCU. Come over here to Williamson County. We've got grass turf. We've got nutrition bars. We've got. I posted pictures of our weight room at the school I'm at now. Like, oh, it rained that day. Oh, don't worry, we'll call in the sheriff's office. They'll come dry the field off for us with a helicopter. Meanwhile, I'm over here at
Yeah.
exactly. Meanwhile, we're over here playing in the Mud Bowl, over here for a playoff game, and then also too in Williamson County, they pick a game of the week, and when they do game of the week, it's like Fox NFL Network shows up, and it's like a whole show. It's a big production. I'll post one of the videos on the thread we had yesterday, Tamon, just so y'all can just see. But again, touching back on like, yeah, if a kid like Jadeveon Clowney goes like a South Carolina State, what does that look like? I use that same pitch for high school parents all the time. Like, yeah, if your kid goes to a private school, he'll have all the bells and whistles, but here he'll have the opportunity to play, he'll have the opportunity to get exposure. And for high school recruiting, the more reps that kid can put on film, the better for me. And you may get some recruiters that say, well, what's the level of competition he's playing against? But if you see someone like Jadeveon Clowney doing what he's doing, it doesn't matter at that point. You're like, oh, that's boys, no matter what. So, you know.
Yeah, and you know, in sports, you know, like we talked about, you know, piggybacking. You know, if you bring in a stud, another stud soon to follow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just is what it is. You know, people want to play with LeBron. You know what I mean? LeBron's gonna bring another stud. Like, look at him and AD. You know, that is just the nature of the business. You know, again, I can only talk for what I know. So playing at Wesley, you know, when I got there, they were 6-4. When I left, we were 39-6. You know, with 3 semifinal appearances, and like I was playing with kids I know for a fact didn't belong. But Coach Drass was the ultimate recruiter. Like, he went into Baltimore City, he went into DC, he went up to Philly, New York. He got kids, you know, that, you know, and you know, he's big white guy, you know what I mean, Jersey accent, PA accent. And he went into Baltimore City and he brought kids that, in all honesty, didn't belong on our campus. You know, they belonged at Maryland, they belonged at, you know, these big time schools. And with HBCUs, they've got to find coaches that are going to, like you said, bring these champs in. You know, bring these horses in. Dustin Johnson, former Del Mar quarterback, played at Salisbury. He's now the head coach of William Patterson. He's doing that. You know, he's at a program that was 0-10 the last 3 or 4 years. He's gotten, I think, nine kids in the last 2 years from Southern Delaware, and now he's putting them on the map. You know, they're winning games because he's bringing in kids that can win by.
You're breaking up.
So to touch on what he was saying, what I'm hearing is it's not a lot of.
We sorted that a little bit. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good.
No, I was just saying, like my man was saying about the facilities. You know, like he said, like sometimes it's just night and day. You know, and kids see that. Let's be honest. Kids, you look at these travel football teams now, and you got kids going out, and they got more spat and compression clothes on, and they get out there and play like they got $2 in their pocket. You know, like, and it's the allure of being good or being great. You know, like he's talking about. I've seen gritty high school teams get off the field and be tough, and then you got kids that got all the bells and the whistles, got all the pads out on the field, and they get out on the field and don't do much. You know, it's just different.
And okay, I'm a piggy. So for instance, like we had Jacob Phillips, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we sucked ass with Jacob Phillips. And it was just a select, and they're like, you have a 5-star linebacker, and you guys are like 3-7, 4-6. But it was the culture of where our program was at the time. And that was my first year with the program. And I told my coach, I said, we need to change our identity. We need to change who we are. And so we went out, and my buddy, who before he moved to California, he would have been amazing on this call. He's heavy recruiting just as well. We got all new uniforms. And so in the city, we became one of the few schools that could pick jerseys. We had like 5 or 6 uniform combinations. and then we added in the smoke. Like we pop smoke before games. I don't know if I've ever seen eating a car when they come out, through the smoke, the fire, the whole 9 yards. And it was the allure. Like you said, the allure. That's what changed. That's what like triggered the.
Mm-hmm.
So now
That old Miami.
all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, East Nashville, man, hold on, they're winning games now. They got new uniforms. They're popping smoke.
Yeah.
And I get to play with my people. Man, that private school over there, they got everything I want, but I can go over here. And they send the kids to college now at East. I'll go over. So now you've got to go the extra mile to attract those people. And so last year, we had our largest influx of freshman football players. We had 95 freshmen at a practice. Now, keep in mind, East is a 3A school. We go up to 6A classification here in Tennessee. So you're talking about 95. Now, not all 95 stuck around, but still, at a school that's like a magnet school with a population of 700 kids total, you had 90 plus football players come out. That's all because of the allure, the appeal, the attraction. But like you said, then some of these other schools, they've got all the bells and whistles and won't bust a break. So it's all about how to sell yourself. And I think that's another thing with the HBCUs. What are you doing to sell yourself? Like you can't be complacent on these morals of inclusion anymore because no one cares about inclusion. Look at interracial dating. I mean, think about just 20 years ago. Was your parents comfortable with you possibly dating a white girl or vice versa? Now, that's all at the school I was at East Nashville. Nah, my boys didn't date white girls over there. My new school, oh man, dude. You're like, what? You date who? Oh, okay. And then not only that, generational wealth that some of these people have now. If I'm a black kid, I'm gonna date this white girl, and I'm gonna go to a Power 5 school, and I'm gonna get me another one when I get. I'm in left field, but it's the allure, man. It's the that's what triggered me on that rant was the allure.
Go ahead and chime in, Esmond.
No, I didn't have anything really to that point. I was just listening.
Well,
okay.
Go ahead,
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to kind of piggyback off of both Eston and Corey's points as far as the allure of the recruiting and not getting out there and pretty much putting on a fanfare to allure these kids to come. One of the stories that Corey was saying is that he had sent off a tape of one of his guys to Morgan State and didn't hear back from him. And
that happens a lot.
One of the things that just going back off of, I have a friend by the name of CJ Scott, right?
Yep.
And he's a 1,000-point scorer and leading the state in scoring, but he's right there at Dell State and nobody looked at him. He's right there in the area and no one looked at him. And when you look at the roster that Delaware State produces as far as basketball, even on the football roster, it's not local.
None. Yeah.
And I'm a homer, you know what I mean, being from Delaware, but even just looking outside of going to Morgan State, when you looked at the kids that was on there, a lot of them was from the Maryland area, but Maryland is huge. And you have a lot of other players that are recruited from God knows wherever else. And one of the things that I think that HBCUs need to work on is getting corporate sponsors to be able to fund these recruiting trips so that way you don't become late, an hour late, or to the point to where, and recruiting in state, because you lose a lot of in-state talent that are going off to these bigger colleges that if you had wooed them the right way and spoke what you need to speak even to their parents, it may be a better pitch to say, hey, maybe you need to go to Morgan and get a 4-year degree. Maybe it might be better for you to go to Southern and go down there in Louisiana and get the culture and play in the Bayou Classic. And because one of the things that Shakur touched on as well is homecoming is a pitch all in itself for recruiting, right?
Only time I went Dell State.
Right, exactly. So when you think about just the homecoming experience, it really can be every game
Mhm.
because the band produces and one of my guys, Carlos Payton, he was in the Dell State band. He's a huge band guy, and that brings culture to the game. And the homecoming, if you want to be real, is really just a culture fest. You
Mhm.
have booths and everything, but at the same time, you have all these alumni, all these people that are coming together, and it's all positive. It's all unity. You know what I mean? And it's all for a cause. And we go, of course, some people don't necessarily support the football games with homecoming season because the teams aren't necessarily good. But just imagine if recruiting changed, if there was more picture corporate sponsors to get funding to help recruiting, to help to get better athlete quality, to where you have a better product on the field, to where people will actually want to go to the games. I knew it was hard for people, for me to get people like, yo, you want to go to the football game? Nah, jeez, bro. I mean, it's
Right.
free. All you gotta do is swipe your band card and get in. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, 100%.
like,
100%.
but no, I can find something else better to do with my Saturday. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but it's the football team. Like, I
Right, right,
at home in Seaford at least went to the game, bro.
right.
You know what I mean? But I mean, maybe that's just my mindset. Like, maybe
No,
there just needs to be a change in the mindset as
yeah,
far as maybe the recruiting, the athletic director. I think there just needs to be some sort of all around pitch and pitch in to try to change the narrative.
yeah. I
Go ahead,
think
Doc.
the same thing you're saying it to mom because like I gotta give kudos to Coach Milstead right now, who's at Del State, and that's what he's doing. He's bringing in so many more Delaware kids in his recruiting. He's actually selling himself. I'll tell you, man, over the last couple of years, especially when I was the head coach at Laurel, he would come, two, sometimes three times a year just to check on kids and see how they were advancing. And I had a long snapper this past year, and he texts them all the time. Got his other coaches to text and call. Like they did a great job of making that kid feel one.
He's making some great
Wanted,
points. He's making some
Yeah,
great
you
points. I'm
talking real
following
good.
and
him.
that was something that I felt that I look at it as more, huh? What happened?
They couldn't hear you, but we knew you was
Oh,
making
I'm
some
sorry.
great points.
That's when I was moving. So what I was saying is they were doing a great job of making those kids feel wanted, and they were selling themselves. And a lot of times it is the staff, like Corey was talking about. Sometimes it's the allure of the people that you're going to see every day. You're going to be around them every day. You know, no mama's going to send their young son or his young daughter to a coaching staff or they don't feel comfortable. That they don't
Mhm.
feel that in the sense of danger that they're going to try to do their best for you. My mom still says it to this day. Coach Drafts promised me that I would graduate, and he was on me. Man, you talking about 6:30, wake ups, and he was always there as the head coach. You know what I mean? You got to realize, like we talk about, it's a business, right? Your investment, putting it into your investment, making sure that they feel invested in. You know.
One of the things
Oh, go
I
ahead, go
talked
ahead.
to, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, go ahead. I'll go
Oh
after you.
no, like I said, one of the things I was talking to mine about on Monday is, like I said, it's a business. So we was talking about the things that's being promised to these kids. Why I feel as though that they're not going to the HBCUs. And one of the things I said is that some of the times they promise them that they can make sure they go to the pros, right? Or they're going to make sure that they're going to go to a national. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
be seen, right? But one of the things that I hear you guys saying is that, like Shakori said, when he first got there,
Mm-hmm.
they sucked, right? And then it was he had to change the culture of of the school, right? They got new uniforms, they got the smoke stuff, so they needed people to come in because of what they
Mm-hmm.
seen, right? The allure of things. And one of the things I want to ask you guys is, do you think that then the HBCUs aren't really don't really care about the athletics? They don't really want to put all of that into a program to for the allure to bring those in-state athletes to their programs.
I think, and from my experience with dealing with the HBCUs, for them, it's about we're going to come to an historically black college that only so many people have been to. You're going to get an amazing degree from Southern, from Grambling, Jackson State. Like you'll be able to stay and put that on your wall, and that's great and all. But it's just like, why can't I have the best of both worlds? Why can't I
Right.
have the athletic experience of playing in front of maybe just 10,000 fans? Because you got to think, for a high school kid in Texas, he's already playing in front of 20,000.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you're gonna ask that kid that's playing at Allen, Texas, mind you, is a $60 million stadium, to come play over here at Prairie View A&M. Thanks, but no thanks, man. I'll go over here and just sit on the bench, sit on the bench at North Texas over here before I go over there to Prairie View. But it's just like, I think, like we've been talking about earlier, where do those funds get allocated? What are you doing? Because the recruiting is everything. It's think about it. Clemson has a slide in the locker room. There's a slide that goes from the coach's office down to the front door. I mean, one of my kids that plays tight end for us, he's a Clemson commit. That's the first thing you talked about, the slide. Like, I mean, as college, what you gonna sell them on? Well, we got. Hey, have you heard us play neck? No one can play neck like we play neck out here. I mean, like that's what that like that's what you're gonna like what is it you're gonna sell? And then when a lot of these black colleges, like I was talking to Tamon about on the thread, they wait for those kickback kids. They wait for those kids who are maybe a perennial high level 3-star, but academically they're struggling. Because touch it back on this business. These schools have that board set up in the office. Here are my top 5, top 10 kids in this list. And then with some of these HBCUs, like, I got a kid right now who's got 21 offers. Out of his 21 offers, he now only has 2 HBCU offers. Two. He's got the entire OVC that's offered him, and he's got half of the Southern Conference that's offered. So, okay, those are FCS level schools. All right, his only HBCUs are TSU and Alabama A&M. And what's sad is this: you're telling me that like Morgan State can't use this kid at linebacker? Like, come on now, Delaware State, you can't use this kid at linebacker. Howard, you can't use this kid. Well, Howard's an influx anyway, but still, I'm just saying, a lot of them shy away from just recruiting. Period. They want to wait for kickbacks, and I mean, as a kid, if I see that, man, I'm not gonna want to go there because you didn't want me in the beginning. So,
to me, what I hear you saying is that it's a mentality thing. They need to change their mentality because they don't think that they can get one of these kids. They don't think that I can get one of these kids. So we don't even attempt to go after one of these kids. What we do is we wait for them to fall down the pipeline, and then we try to grab them instead of putting money into our institutions and then saying that this is what we want to do. We want to go attack one of these kids. So to me, there's no game plan. What I'm hearing, we hear you saying that there's no game plan to go and even attempt to get one of these kids.
I mean, but
I'm about to say, basically, like exactly what you're saying. And, I think they need to say, we've done this, we've put our money here, we've done this. This is where you need to be. Period. Like we need to draw that line in the sand and start making, their institution relevant. Not saying, oh, well, we've got this, and that. No, hey, we're focusing on football right here. We're focusing on basketball, but this is the place where you need to be.
And I will say also to an extent where a lot of the FCS HBCUs lacking is their camps. Like a lot of times, like you'll see, like you might have to go digging for information on their camp. It might be on a small link on the website, things like that. Even when Lincoln had their camp last year, their camp was almost $200. So just the structure of the camps, I think like if they did more as far as in the summer with the camps, getting more kids on campus and things like that. If you look at it, Bowie State's a Division II school, and they're way more ahead of the D1s as far as camps. Like I believe they had Michigan at a camp not too long ago. So if I'm a D2 school and I can get Michigan or Rutgers at like a satellite camp or whatever, I'm going to get a lot of the people that they don't want that still play at a high level. So I think that's how Bowie State actually took it to the next level as far as recruiting and playing and things like that. That a lot of the FCS schools could follow their blueprint as far as that.
Of course.
And you touch on a new phenomenon that is sparked off probably over the last 3 years, which drives Nick Saban.
Satellites.
Man, dude,
He's
and dude, I've been to Bama. I've watched the Bama camp. I've been in the office with Saban. The word satellite camps, you might as well. Oh my God, because again, that staff at Bama. I've had a couple of buddies who I've known now in the profession that have worked at Bama and couldn't wait to get up out of there because of what the demand is. I mean, you got to think about Lane Kiffin. We all know Lane Kiffin don't want to do no real work or whatever. Lane would tell you it was too much. It was too much. They're up. If Saban's in office at 4, they need to be there by 3:30 at the latest. You know what I mean? So I mean that kind of grind, they're not up for it. But touch back on what you were saying. Jim Harbaugh is the one who kicked off this whole satellite camp.
Yeah, he did.
Michigan. And with TSU here, TSU does satellite camps with Michigan every year. Then they do a major one with UT. With us being here in Nashville, we're essentially the gateway to the SEC conference. So I mean, you know, you're talking about those camps now where TSU's like, okay, $35 for a camp. Come on out. Now that camp is going to feature Georgia, Michigan, UT, a host of other FCS schools. Now, what camp that used to be 50 kids is now 500 kids. You know, because you're getting kids from all over that are coming up in there. And again, like you said, Bowie State, because I was actually going to come to Bowie State last year. I think Virginia Tech for the satellite camp with them. And I had a couple kids that Tech was looking at, and I was like, well, hell, that would be a trip home for me. We can stay at the house. We'll save some money. Like, you know, because like, for instance, for me, I take about 10 to 15 recruiting trips during the off season from when we're done playing all the way up until spring ball starts. And I mean, that comes with, you know, rental car expenses, hotel expenses. And the way I do it is I try to make it as cost effective to the parents as possible because I deal with high risk kids. I'm blessed enough to be in a position where I can eat all the expenses for the most part and get these kids to wherever they need to be. So that's not an issue. But when you're talking about being able to have that satellite camp and these HBCUs aren't capitalizing on
Not at all.
Like, it's, to me, it's mind-boggling. It's free advertising. Like, if you're Delaware State, okay, you know you sit in that I-95 corridor. Why not do a combined camp with the University of Maryland? Why not possibly reach out to West Virginia and say, hey, let's do a combined satellite camp, or University of Virginia? Because all you want to do is attract kids. Yep. You just want to see who can we find out there, because again, not all these kids are Power 5 kids, but if you make that kid feel loved, there's no telling what you'll be able to draw. Like we talked about, everybody wants to click up now and play with my homeboys. So if I get the opportunity, you know, say like Taman, Delaware State comes offers Taman. I've known Taman since I was 5. You know what I mean? And Taman is the main attraction for that recruiting class. Taman's gonna have all the leverage in the world. Like, hey man, offer my homeboy. Yeah, and he'll come up here. He'll play with me. And although Taman, you might be Virginia Tech worthy, but Virginia Tech's going to say, hey, I need you to go to Fort Union for a year and develop your talent. Dell State's like, hey, Taman, we'll play you as a true freshman right now. I'm gonna go get these. I'll possibly go in here to Dell State and get these reps in, you know, and now build my career from there. Because now, Taman, with your size, we already know you're NFL worthy. We now need to get you the reps, because you'll mess around and get out recruited at Virginia Tech. They may keep bringing in 4 or 5-star left tackles, and now you're just the third guy on the bench. And now, guess what? You'll probably end up transferring to Delaware State anyway. And that's what these HBCUs bank on. They bank on the kickbacks, like we said earlier. But man, if you utilize these satellite camps, whew, I don't know how many don't.
Yeah.
Good, man. Come on, you got something?
Because I was gonna say, even to his point with the transfers, like a lot of kids aren't even really going from FBS schools to HBCUs because of the popularity of the junior colleges now, like the East Mississippi's, the Independents and places like that, who got ASA, Miami, and places like that. So even still, like with the transfer portal, it's kind of like people are renting HBCUs for a year, and then going to bigger schools and things like that. So I just think HBCUs just have to have a better way of selling themselves and just show that they can win at a consistent level.
But not only selling themselves, you touch on the point of JUCOs. Think about this now. Have you ever actually watched the HBCU game that wasn't on ESPN and the production that's put together? I mean, like the graphics of it is just horrible. Commentary is bad. I can now go play at a JUCO and possibly be on Netflix for 10 episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll go over to Independence.
No. What about when? Okay, so when I was younger, and I'm in my mid-30s, there was black college football on BET.
Yeah.
It started off
Oh, yeah.
as a tape delay, but then they started actually playing. Now, granted, I mean, I probably watched Michigan over watching. I mean, but but in the grand scheme of things, I think that Bob Johnson was on to something. Unfortunately, he sold his company to Viacom, but I think that he was on something as far as getting the notoriety out there and making it to where once it was live, you could actually see the whole entire experience with the band and everything. And I think that goes back to the allure as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that like you said, they're not. They to me, the focus is not athletics. They're not putting enough into their athletic programs to actually keep these kids attention. I mean, to draw these kids in. Like I heard some of y'all say that it's really basically their pitch is historic, right? This is who we've had here. You can be one of these people that's been here. Yeah, I mean, from this illustrious this lineage. I mean, but they can go to a predominantly white college and they can say the same exact thing and still have the recruiting and still have the facilities. So their pitch to me needs to be refined, and their pitch needs to be more than what it's been. It can't be. I mean, business as usual with these HBCUs. They have to up what they're doing to compete with these predominantly white colleges who are taking from your city and your state.
One of the things that one of our viewers asked is why focus on the 5 stars and go for the top tier FCS to low level group 5 kids.
Well, here's what you understand too about recruiting. It's a lazy man's game at the college level. Between the hours of getting ready to go win a game on Saturday or Thursday night, I'm going to utilize the recruiting services. I'm going to utilize the rivals. I'm going to utilize the 24/7 sports. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a coach tweet, "Oh, I don't care about how many offers a kid has. I want a kid that's a dog." And then 5 minutes later, "Hey, coach, how come no one's offered this kid?"
You are 100% right. That's the first thing comes out their mouth.
Like the first thing that comes out, and you know what's crazy? So I with Tulane's down in New Orleans. They come and they recruit Nashville pretty hard, and they're like an academic school. The recruiter from that area is not from East Tennessee, out of Knoxville. There was a year I had a kid who ended up signing Tulsa, and then his grades wouldn't work, but Tulsa was his only offer. Tulane wouldn't offer him because he's like, no one else wants that kid. This past season, my background, only who had 20 plus offers, Tulane was like, "Hey, we like this kid. We're gonna offer this kid." I said, "No, we're good. We're good." The only reason you're offering this kid is because you see all the other offers he's got. It's not like you invested in him. It's not like you did the research behind it. So it's and that's just across the board. Like these coaches burn me up. I just want a dog. Coach, he ain't got no offer. What's wrong with him, coach? Because a lot of these recruiters don't trust their eyes. And then keep in mind, their job is on the line too, as well.
Television.
Yeah. So if you miss on a recruit, oh man, that's gonna be hard. Then too, also keep in mind with the business, some of these schools have smaller budgets. So for instance, if I'm Delaware State and there's a kid that's in Virginia who I really, really like, financially, that's an out-of-state position. So that might eat up 2 scholarships right there where I could probably make two kids out of Virginia for the price of this one. So I mean, that's another thing. Goes back to the budget of what's allowed for recruiting. But a lot of these recruiters, they don't trust their eyes. So if I see a kid that's a 4 or 5 star, and unfortunately, most of these kids that are high level 4 or 5 stars, academically, they're not going to make the cut anyway. So they may have a core GPA of a 2.2 and an ACT score of a 16 or 17. Well, look at the sliding scale, they may not academically be able to go to Bama or University of Illinois, but a school like Delaware State, that kid's gonna meet the cutoff. So I'll wait until this national signing day, which we all know is just pomp and circumstance, until he signs that national letter of intent. He's still free game. And that's how you end up getting a lot of kids that are kickbacks. Like TSU got a kid that was academically he couldn't get into Kansas State. Now he's here at TSU. So I mean, that was a 4-star All American potential. So I mean, a lot of those kids, those high level kids, and we all know there are kids, there are black boys. Academically, they're not going to make it.
Right.
I got a kid that's going to Fort Scott, Kentucky, who is a 4-star DB, but academically, you couldn't keep him focused in the classroom. So now you're talking about a kid that potentially had an Ohio State offer is now going to be playing JUCO ball. I mean,
and to that point where you're saying he was going to Fort Scott as a JUCO, and a lot of people don't even know that there's a HBCU JUCO in Arkansas Baptist, that is independent. And they're actually affordable, but you don't even see a pipeline with their kids going to HBCUs. Like they had a running back a few years ago. He went to USF. They've had some pretty good talent over the years as far as like their recruiting coordinator, Coach Bailey. He's definitely a top-notch guy. If you go on his Twitter, he's always working, always trying to get kids and things like that. And I think that that's going to put them ahead of the game. And I do believe that last question that came in was from Coach William McDonald. He's the quarterbacks coach at ASA Miami. So, so he might be shooting some more questions in.
Cool. So, I guess the question I have now is we are 5 people who just doing a little show, right? And these big HBCUs, like we have a lot of suggestions. We have a lot of things that we've been talking about and discussing for the past hour. Why haven't the HBCUs who get paid to do this put these things into practice?
I think even though they're still getting paid, still financially, they're still long roads behind. You look at, let's not even say Houston. We'll say a Houston school, Ohio State. They probably got a couple $1 million to the team. Each coach is probably getting a rental car, hotels paid for, and a lot of these HBCUs, D3, D2 coaches, like Coach Corey said, he's coming out of pocket. A lot of these HBCUs, these coaches, a lot of them, they're coming out of pocket. They're not getting the funds to go and drive across the country to get these kids that they could possibly pick up at a fraction of the price than the in-state kid. Than the out-of-state, the in-state kids. Excuse me. So I think a lot of times they're falling behind the bucket because we talk about appropriated funds. Putting funds away to go out and get these kids to recruit, to facilities, marketing, everything. You got to market yourself, and if you don't have the money to do that, you're going to struggle. These kids want the pizzazz. We talked about Harbaugh earlier. Harbaugh slept at one of his recruits' house. That going that extra mile. Slept on the couch. I had a kid get a letter from a big time school at Woodbridge, and the coach sent a card that was personalized. Had a picture with his jersey up in the stands. Had his name on a locker already. When he got there, everything, the red carpet was rolled out. A lot of these teams are struggling. HBCUs are struggling because one, the funds.
Well, and I say this, on top of the funds, are you hiring a staff of go-getters? I'll give you a prime example, and you guys may know who he is, may not. You look at what a guy like Brennan Marion's done. Now I don't know if y'all know him.
He's at Hawaii now, right?
He's at Hawaii now, right?
He's a wide receivers coach at Hawaii. Yeah.
I first met him when he was at Kentucky Christian. Kentucky Christian is a little trash NAIA school in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. He came in as recruiting coordinator. He offered everybody and their mama. And again, this is why I don't understand. Like you said, these coaches aren't thinking this thing. Social media is free. Twitter is free. Think about it.
Yeah.
These kids can get an offer from Charlotte University. Blessed to receive my first offer from Charlotte University. And then all their little friends, now we know Charlotte's not a real school, but all their friends are going to retweet and they're going to like it. Coach Marion came in and offered damn near top level kid and like mid, average kid in Greater Nashville. That night, and I watched it because I'm a communications major, so social media is my thing, and I work third shift. I'm always analyzing stuff because there's always the underlining message, and I'm chasing the rabbit hole. I'm that guy. His Twitter went from like 1,000 to like 5,000 followers overnight. Wow. There's people retweeting. Let's get this offer. Yada 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 yada. And now all of a sudden, Coach Marion's name is out there. It's floating around. That energy is contagious. It's floating. And now all of a sudden you look up, he's an offensive coordinator at Howard. He's got one of the most prolific offenses in FCS where people go off where people are enamored by that offense. Like, oh my God. It's like the next best thing since sliced bread. Now you're talking about following Coach London down from Howard to William and Mary, and now he's at Hawaii. That young man built a brand for himself. And a lot of these HBCUs, look at some of these coaches they had on staff, dog, they're old. They're on their last coaching job. They've been dated by the coaching industry. They're like, man, we're not big on social media. How are you not big on social media? All these damn kids are on. So if on TikTok, the least you can do is tweet out, "Hey, come to Delaware State. We're selling fish sandwiches Saturday." Man, look, your people will get behind that. It's free. It's free media, and also those kids pay attention to that too. The fan base. I got, like, for instance, I coach 2 weeks ago, Junior goes on this Twitter and makes a post, GBO, talking to the University of Tennessee fan base. Hey, help me get over like 50,000 followers. And here they go. So that stuff matters. And I mean, that's free marketing right there. So the fact that you're not utilizing free marketing, that's a fake.
And just to talk on Coach Marion, so he was at Hampton, then went to William and Mary with Coach London. It just surprises me, like, a guy like that doesn't get the head coaching job at Howard.
Well, couple things too as well with that head coaching job. What they're going to look at that particular level is going to be, well, what's his experience so far? What's his pedigree? And you got to think, if I'm an AD, although I may want somebody that's young and ambitious, think about how long some of these coaches sit on these posts. You think about, like, for us at Morgan State, as bad as Morgan State was, Hill was the coach for their 10 plus years. So you got to think, for me, I'm gonna make a hire for my program that's safe to where, sometimes ambition scares people. You got to think, a guy like Marion is a fast riser. He's a fast mover.
True.
So it's just like, if I'm a guy that's built on stability, you know what I mean, and we like to play it safe, we're not really radical, I'm not going to hire someone who's that young, that ambitious, energetic. It's just not.
So what it sounds like is pretty much it needs to be a combination of the president and the athletic director getting together and coming together and figuring out a scheme as far as utilizing free publicity or free marketing and trying to figure out different ways to, if you're not allocating any revenue, then cut costs and use certain methods to build your brand to where it's reputable and at least talked about. I mean, the whole one of the things is what is it? Bad press is still good press, or something along those lines. Any press is good press. That's what it is. Um, so I mean, from what it sounds like, if any athletic directors are listening, what you need to do is find you some head coaches that are go getters, such as the coaches that guys have mentioned, um, and create a culture. Don't just have it as this is the athletic program for our school and it is what it is, and it just can't be a sideshow in a sense. It has to be relegated to the position that PWIs, which would be the peers, have done to their schools. And we know that the product, and let's be honest, the product has been African American males that they have ruled the backs of to get to where they've got to revenue wise. So why can't we, as presidents and athletic directors, come together and do that same for MEAC and the SWAC to where it does produce, to where you have a culture that students that are actually attending the college will go to the games and then have the community come and then build it that way. Granted, it's a long stretch, and I think in football it'll probably take a little longer than if it were to be basketball, because basketball all it really takes is one. You know what I mean? Like the coach from North Carolina Central offered LeBron James son. Granted, he's a freshman, but just that publicity right there, just that shockwave, it was just like, okay, what is North Carolina Central? Who are they with? What conference are they in? Okay, they're in the MEAC. Oh, okay, they've been winning the MEAC for this and that. Okay, and granted, we don't know if he's going to go there or not, but let's just say he does, and how that changes to where ESPN will be viewing North Carolina Central versus uh, Norfolk State on a Tuesday night prime time, just because LeBron James' son is playing. You know what I mean? And that
True.
television revenue, if it's allocated correctly, even though I mean, even the guys that stay for basketball, for football, it's you got to stay 3 years and you before you're eligible for the NFL. Versus the NBA, you can they're about to move it to where I mean you can come straight out of high school, but you have that leverage to where someone as Ben Simmons, we knew that after March he wasn't going to class at LSU. I mean, so he could have used that leverage to have gone to Southern, and he would have still got the press and still been the number one pick, regardless of who he played.
True.
I mean, LSU didn't even make the tournament that year, and he still been number one. So he was number one when he was at I can't
In
think
high
of
school.
the high school exactly. So everybody knew what it was. Same thing for Zion. So I think for basketball, I think basketball has it to where if you have a coach such as the coach from North Carolina Central has that mindset to just get one, and if you can get like five of those coaches, that can bring that revenue into where you can utilize that revenue to help out the weight room in the football field and to where it attracts football because everybody knows America loves football.
Hmm.
But to touch on Coach Moan at North Carolina Central, look at his Twitter, 34,000 followers.
I
Like,
think again that goes to say what we've been saying is that he is he is thinking outside the box. He is keeping up with what other people are doing. You know what I mean? So he has that pipe. I mean, he has that touch where he's actually reaching out to other. I mean, kids. I mean, he is in tune with what's going on, and
right,
the HBCUs aren't. They're not doing. They're not taking advantage of the opportunities that are out there.
right. And I mean, that's just it. You think about, offering offering Bronny. It's not so much that you're going to get a kid like Bronny James, but now you're part of the national conversation because
Hmm.
now, Pete, that's free. That's free media clicks right now for your program. Because all of a sudden, wait, you're offering Bronny. Well, who is North Carolina Central? So now you got some kid that's probably in Silicon Valley who never heard of North Carolina Central. And let me just Google what North Carolina Central is. let me just see this coach. I mean, think about it. He's got 34,000 followers, right? So imagine the kid like Ron does with the North Carolina. You understand the kind of free media advertisement now that's going to come with that. But not only that, if I'm a corporate sponsor, hey, this guy's got a media following of 34,000 people. This guy Ronnie's son to come in. Maybe now let me attach my wheel to that wagon and let me see where. But I think if we were to sit here and say today, what are the biggest things? Definitely the funds. Where's the money going towards the athletic program? Two, who's on your staff? Do you have a staff of guys that are comfortable with doing things at status quo, or do you have go getters? And just three, what's the allure to the program? I think that part goes back to the staff because again, it's nothing that's appealing or catching my eye. Why would I go there? I mean, think about it. Some of us are married. What attracted you to your wife? I said, "Oh man, like this is the one." You know, again, these kids are picking a school for 4 years. We picked our wives based off of commitment of a lifetime. So, I mean, for 4 years, make me say yes. Like for probably 3 to 4 years, what is it that I'm going to say yes to? You know, and I can touch on TSU because it's here in Nashville. TSU has probably one of the most historic mystique stadiums in all of Black college football. It's called the Hole, but they made a deal with the Titans. The Hole hasn't been renovated. They don't have enough lighting to even play a game at night, and then they still have the trough style bathrooms in the general bathrooms. Like, who wants to go there and play in under those kind of conditions? Now
Right.
they play at the
Right.
Titan Stadium, but I don't know if you guys has ever really played at HBCU or watched HBCU games at an NFL stadium. It is the worst. You got a 70,000 stadium and there's only like 10 people there. It's the worst, man. Like you got to be able to keep your games on campus so kids can appreciate the allure of what you bring to the table.
And with that being said, to touch on what Taman talked about them offering Bronny a scholarship. Um, I seen somewhere, I think I read somewhere the other day where an eighth grader quarterback, eighth grade quarterback got offered a scholarship also. So, like you said, HSBCUs, it just seems like they are not taking advantage of the opportunities that's afforded to them. They are not, again, football, basketball, athletics is not their focal. They are comfortable with picking cherries or, I mean, whatever falls to them. And to me, that is why we see the state of HBCUs now because they aren't thinking, they aren't forward thinkers, and they aren't actually going out there and getting and taking those opportunities.
Any last points, you guys?
I would just say with the college basketball standpoint, even Howard has had like 3 top 100 guys over the last couple of years that actually come on a visit. So being a HBCU, that's pretty big as far as in the basketball world, just even having them in your top 5 anyway. So I just think that it'll just take a situation kind of like how Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, and them came together, and they picked Michigan, which is a powerhouse football school, and turned them into a nationally televised basketball school. So I think it is possible with basketball, but it's just going to take 3 or 4 guys, maybe 2 guys, who can come together and be like, hey, we can go make some change and go to these HBCUs and prove that we can win at a HBCU. And I think that's not far-fetched at all. Just as long as they can just keep them interested and just keep them in the spotlight as far as like, if you come here, like, things will change as far as that while putting us on the map as well as yourself.
Well, and to piggyback on that, last year, the team I coached at East Nashville, we had potentially non-Division One guys on our defense. Now, academically, it didn't play out like it's supposed to. Alabama A&M came in and offered every senior that's in my starting defense a scholarship. And not only did they offer them, they made it a committable offer because they're looking at, hey, y'all are some of the top kids on our board, so if we're able to get you guys in as a whole group, that potentially changes our program. Alabama A&M, they're trying. They're right out here in North Alabama, right outside of. What's crazy is you're like, I got TSU in my backyard. They didn't even come over here and offer any of these kids. But Alabama A&M was like, we're gonna offer this whole group right here, and they're all committable offers right now.
Because even if they get 3, that's big.
If they get 3 of them, is big. And I mean, and these are kids. You're talking about one of my guys. He's going to Navy. I got another kid who's going up to Ball State, and another one of them kids again was the kid that's going out to JUCO. Like, I mean, you're talking about if you're able to get, because in football, if you can get a good core of kids to come up in there, that can change the dynamic of your program. And now you're like, damn, y'all play together. Like, I mean, think about like the U. We think about the U back in the day when they had like Sean Taylor, Ed Reed, Jonathan Vilma, DJ Williams, all of them played on one. Like, that alone is a selling pitch for the University of Miami. You don't even got to sell the school. Take us back to the days when we were the U. Like, who wouldn't want that opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that appeals. So when you talk about the HBCUs, you know, like you talk about Grambling State. Grambling State has such a rich history of football. How is it now all of a sudden North Carolina A&T came out of nowhere, and now North Carolina A&T is your powerhouse HBCU? Grambling State,
That's gone.
yeah, and I mean they're rolling. Like, think about this: growing up as kids, all we watched was Grambling versus Southern, or on TV. But now everyone can get on TV. But it's just like, how did those programs get to where they're at? And touch back on the original point: integration.
And Grambling at one point was down on its luck real bad a few years ago.
Their program was almost done.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
When you think about Grambling and all the history, and then the fact that they were at the bottom of the barrel as far as like kids quitting and complaining about coaches, the facilities wasn't up to par, their equipment and stuff had mold and stuff they were complaining about. Like, it was crazy.
Eston, your last point?
Oh, sorry, guys, we got cut off. Well, I'm sorry. What was the question?
You can just sum up your whole view on this, the HBCU. Just give one, you know what I mean, one summary of how you think things should change, positive, negatives, and
Yeah, I mean, just honestly, just listen to everybody and my point as well. I think honestly, just investing more time, doing more on the front line, making sure that kids see the value in going to an HBCU. I think that's the biggest thing, creating that value. Also, we also talk about investing money into the athletics just as much as the academics. I just feel like, you got to realize that your kids are going to spend the next 4 to 5 years of their life there. And, and honestly, if they're not comfortable and if they don't see the value in it, then who's going to want?
To me, what my last point, just listening to all you guys, it was real educational for me. It's the HBCUs are part of the problem. It's not the predominantly white institutions that are the problem. They're actually doing what they need to do. They're doing what they need to do to allure the kids to come to their schools. The HBCUs aren't up to that level, and they aren't focused on that level to get those kids because they are content with just secondhand talent. To me, not calling kids in secondhand talent, but they're content with the kids that are falling behind or that other programs don't want, and they aren't actually taking the ball by the horns and actually going to get that talent for me.
My last point would be that, of course, me attending the HBCU, I'm going to be biased, right? And understanding the culture that it brings to an African American male or female, but we're talking about males in general, and the culture and understanding from the professors to the students, the things that you learn. I would always recommend that to someone that looks like me, especially if he's a young male, because of the positive experiences that I had. And granted, I wasn't an athlete, so I can't speak on that. But just being a student and being around the students and knowing how the football players and the basketball players interacted with the students and just the culture itself. I would always push the narrative that HBCUs need to figure out a way to get into the swing of things in a sense of pushing the narrative to where it's not pushed out. I mean, yeah, they do have the streaming. MEAC has the streaming deal, and the SWAC has a streaming deal with ESPN. But let's be honest, we see it on ESPN3 or on ESPNU on Thursday
Yeah.
nights. It needs to be to where, and like I said before, I think Bob Johnson really had something going. It needs to be on Saturdays, just the same way as the big time television. And then you'll have the alumni that can't get to the games want to actually tune in. I know me personally, whenever I see Morgan State on TV, I know they're probably going to get smashed. But at the same time, I'm going to watch it because that's the school that I went to, and it's a pride thing. Granted, I'm a Tar Heel fan, but if anytime I see anytime I see Morgan State on television, I have a sense of pride. Like, oh snap, we're on TV. We shouldn't have that mindset in 2020 as someone who attended the HBCU saying, oh snap, we're on TV. It should be a regular occurrence. So that's just my opinion that the athletic directors, presidents need to get together and innovate their marketing to where it draws the allure and build more so on the culture aspect and bring in the flamboyance to bring them in and understand what these kids' language are and roll with the times. And that's the only way you're going to compete. Otherwise, you're going to have situations like where A&T is about to leave, where Hampton is left to go to. And what's crazy is that Hampton actually lost to Virginia Union, which is another HBCU, and they're Division two. And they've just lost to them this past September, or last September, I should say. So that should tell you that like just moving to the power conferences or moving up in the conferences isn't going to change any of the as far as the talent or recruiting wise. So just build off that. That will be my take.
Gotcha. Leaving on this note, with the culture and the state that it's in, to me, everybody loves the underdog story, and to me, being black is actually already we're already an underdog. So I automatically think that if we have more black kids go to HBCUs, then we will see it creates a David versus Goliath feel for me, and then will that to me you'll see more people tune in because we have an HBCU who is an underdog against a big time school who is a predominantly white college. So to me, that is what I took from it. Let's stop trying to just take what people give us and actually go, and this is for the black community, just us in general. Stop just taking what people give us and be the change and change and go get what we need to get and get what you want to go get. I'm out of life to me. So that's what I my closing remarks are for the program.
So we
But
definitely want to thank Eston. We definitely want to thank Esmond, and we definitely want to thank Corey. We appreciate you guys' perspective. Definitely want to have you guys on again for a different topic. Definitely appreciate you taking out the time, your busy lives. Definitely appreciate it.
absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, yeah,
Appreciate the opportunity.
most definitely, man. I appreciate it. Anytime I get to talk sports in general, I'm a happy guy. So I appreciate it. Appreciate it very much.
All right. So with that being said, man, thank y'all for all tuning in. If y'all like and enjoy the video, share with your friends. But until next time, speak on it.